We begin today the Gemara on Daf Mem Ches Amud Beis, 6 lines up from the bottom of the Amud. About the Gemara before brought a machlokes here between Rav and Rabbi Yochanan regarding a case where a person gives a down payment or a deposit, whether for a piece of land or for metaltalin. What happens? Does the sale take effect for the entire land or for the entire metaltalin, or the sale is only in effect for that portion that you gave a down payment for? But for the rest, if the moicher wants, the price went up, but now he wants to retract from the whole sale, he's allowed to. That was a machlokes between Rav and Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara here says that it seems like that this machlokes is a machlokes Tanoim. Leimek Tanoi, shall we say that Tanoim argued about this? Because it says in the Braise, Hamalves Chaveiroi ala mashkin. A person lent his friend money and he gives him a mashkin, a collateral for this. Now Shmita arrives. So usually what's the halacha regarding Shmita? It absolves all loans. But over here though, the lender already has a collateral from the borrower in his possession. The issur of Shmita is not to go and collect from the borrower. But if you already have the collateral in your hand, so over here regarding that, the Shmita shouldn't take effect. So the Braisa says, plag, even if this collateral that you got is only worth half of the loan, eina mishamet. Now this loan, Shmita will not come and absolve this loan. Divrei Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. That's what Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says, if the value of the mashkin that the lender has is the same amount as the actual loan, so then the Shmita will not absolve the loan. But Vimlav, if it's not, like in this case, it's only half of its value, Mishamet. So then the Shmita will take effect even though he has a collateral, but it's not the full value of the loan. So first the Gemara explains here, when they're arguing whether the Shmita will take effect or not, regarding what portion of the loan are they arguing? So my Eina Mishamet Ka'amar Rab Shimon Gamliel. When Rab Shimon Gamliel says you have only a mashkin that's worth half of the loan and the Shmita does not take effect, what was Rab Shimon Gamliel talking about? Are you going to say that Rab Shimon Gamliel is coming to say that the value of the mashkin is that portion of the loan that the Shmita does not take effect? But the other portion of the loan, which does not have the value of the mashkin, that over there the Shmita will take effect. If you're going to say that that's what Rab Shimon Gamliel holds, so now if so, Miklal, from this we understand that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, so Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, which argues in him, so he holds Savar, he holds that Lahach Palge Nami Mishamet, that even for this part of the loan where you do have the value of the mashkin, still the Shmita will take effect. The mashkin, the fact that he already collected and has a mashkin for that portion of the loan, it doesn't matter. The Shmita still takes effect. But the Gemara asks on this, how could you say that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi holds this way? So if so, Ela mashkin the nokit lamale. The mashkin that the malva has from the loive, what is it doing? Isn't the whole point over here of the mashkin that he should have this value of the loan in his hands, that he doesn't have to go to bother and to collect it from the loive? He already has that mashkin as a security in his hands. If he doesn't pay, that he has it. So for that portion of the loan, seemingly the mashkin should definitely take effect, that the loan should not, that the Shmita should absolve it. Again, the Shmita should not absolve it, that is because he has a mashkin for that. So therefore the Gemara says, Elo, Lav, Shmamino. So we must say that what's the pshat in the machlokes of Rab Shimon Gamliel and Rab Yehuda Nasi? My Eina Mishamet to come with Rab Shimon Gamliel. When Rab Shimon Gamliel said that because you have a mashkin, and even though it's only half of the value of the loan, but it's not Mishamet, Eina Mishamet bekuloi. What he meant to say is, it's not Mishamet, the Shmita will not take effect for the entire loan. Or my Mishamet to come with Rab Yehuda Nasi. And when Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says that the Shmita will take effect, lahach palge delay nokatele mashkin. What he's saying is, for that portion that's not the value of the mashkin, it's for that portion that the Shmita will take effect. So now what's the basis of their machlokes? So shouldn't we say that they're arguing in this machlokes that we mentioned before regarding a down payment for a sale? And similar applies here as well. That Rabbi Shimon Gamliel's opinion is, Keneged kuloi hukaina. When you give a down payment, so you acquire the entire house or the entire land. So same thing over here. When you have a mashkin that's only for part of the loan, it's like you now have a mashkin that you have acquired the entire loan already. You have collected the entire loan. So therefore the Shmita will not take effect for any other loan. But Rabbi Yehuda Nasi Savar, however, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's opinion is, Kenegda hukaina. that when you get a mashkin, so just like it is by a sale, when you put that down payment, you only acquire the value of that down payment. The rest you could have charate. So over here as well, the mashkin you have is only for that portion of the loan. The rest of the loan, you don't have a mashkin for it, so the shmita will take effect. So seemingly they're arguing in this machlokes regarding a down payment. So the Gemara answers, loy, that's not the understanding of the argument. The Gemara goes back to the original approach that it wanted to explain here. When Rab Shimon Gamliel said that the Shemitah will not take effect, what he meant to say is, Lahach palga de nokat aleh mashkin. He's saying only regarding that portion of the loan that the lender has the value of the mashkin for it. So now the Gemara goes back to the question that it asked before. So Meklal, if so, we understand that Rab Yudah Nasi Soba, that Rab Yudah Nasi argues and he holds Lahach palga de nokat aleh mashkin nami mishamit, that even for that portion that he has a mashkin for it, so the shmita will still take effect. Why should it take effect? Isn't that the whole point of the mashkin that he's using? He has the mashkin already as a collection for this loan. Ela mashkin de nokat lamale. So then the mashkin that he has, which is less of the value of the loan, but what's the point of this mashkin? So the Gemara answers, L'zikarein dvarim ba'alma. When you get a mashkin that's less of the value of the loan, we don't consider this mashkin to be as a collection for this loan. Because it's not. It's not the value of the loan. Why is the Malva receiving this kind of a mashkin, or why is he demanding to get this kind of a mashkin? So that the loive shouldn't be able to deny the whole loan later. Shouldn't come to him and say, I never borrowed a penny from you. So he'll take out the mashkin and say, here, I have a mashkin from you. This proves that you borrowed the money from me. But the mashkin is in such a case, which is less the value of the loan, does not serve as a purpose of being a collection of the actual loan on any percent. Because if it's only a portion of the loan, it's not the amount of the loan, so it's not a collection of the loan. That's the machlokes here between Rab Shimon Gamliel and Rab Yudah Nasi. Now the Gemara brings a story in connection to this machlokes between Rav and Rab Yochanan, it was, regarding the down payment. So Rav Kahane Yavule Zuzah Kitne. So Rav Kahane, he was selling kitne, flax or linen garments, and he got paid already for this linen garment. Again, the point of here is that he got paid a down payment, not the full price of the entire linen. Now, in the end, what happened was the price of this linen garments went up. So now he's thinking he wants to have charata to make more money. So he came to ask Rav about this. So Rav answered him like his opinion that was mentioned before. For the amount that you got paid already, so that you have to give. You can't have charata from that portion of the sale. But the rest that you weren't paid yet for it, dvarim ninu, it's just words. You gave your word that you're gonna sell it to him. When you go back out from a word that you gave, and there was no money that was paid for it yet, just backing out from your word, there's no mechusrei money. You're not going back on a faithfulness that you have an obligation to follow. You're allowed to back out from this. No mishapara, and there's not only no mishapara, there's no issue b'chlal to back out. And here the Gemara Taka brings that this itself is a chiddush that Rav himself said. We had about this before already on Daf Mem Ches, and the Gemara is going to bring again back the same braises that we had before. But Rav holds, if it's just a word and you're backing out from your word, there's no issue. Because the Itmer, we learned regarding this itself, Taka also, machlokes, dvarim, if a person gives his word and then he wants to back out, there's no issue of the fact that you gave your word and then you're going back on your faithfulness. Rashi brings the pasuk with, Rashi brought it before also, later here, Rashi brings the pasuk that says, She'eris Yisrael yaso avla v'lo yidabru chazav, that Yidden should not speak falsehood. But Rav doesn't hold to that. Rav says you're allowed to back out from your word. But Rav Yochanan says, no, yesh b'em mishum m'chasari yamana. In a sale, a person gives his word, even if there was no payment yet, but once you give your word, you shouldn't back out. So therefore, in this case, Rav told Rav Kahane, on the portion of the flax that you were selling, that you didn't get any money for it, just your word, there's not a reason why you can't back out. So the Gemara asks on Rav, Meisvei, the Braisa says, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Oimer, Ma Tamad Loimar, Hin Sedek. Why does it Torah, when it talks about when you sell things, to be honest with the measure of the way you measure things, so it says it has to be a Hin Sedek. And then the pasuk there also says Eifa Tzedek. So the question is, why does the pasuk have to give both of these measurements? Hin b'chlal Eifa hoya. Hin is already included in Eifa. What's a hin? Rashi says a hin is 12 lug and an Eifa is 72 lug. So when the Torah says that when you give the measure of an Eifa 72 lug, that includes already 12. It's the same thing. Why does the Torah have to give both of these examples? So the Gemara answers, or Rabbi Yehuda answers, Eloloi malacha, it's to tell you, sheyehen shalchat tzedek, v'lav shalchat tzedek. Your yes should be honest. When you say yes, I'm selling, you should follow through, don't retract. And also v'lav shalchat tzedek, when you say no, you should also follow through with that. And that's the tzedek that the Torah is talking about. And so according to this, it comes out that Rabbi Yehuda is saying that this idea not to back out from your word is a mitzvah saseh. Based on this pasuk, because that's what it seems here. But the point is, we're asking on Rav, how could Rav say that just your word, there's no mechusari amana, you can back out from it? So Abaye answers, Hahu, that case that Rabbi Yehuda was talking about is different. That's in a case where shelo yedaber echad bepeh ve'echad belev. That's a situation where a person from the beginning, when he's saying, yes, I agree to sell it, he already in his heart is thinking that he's not going to follow through with the sale and he's going to have charata from it. If when you say the yes, you are not being honest, so then that's what it says, that it's not hen tzedek. But Rav was talking about something else. When you said you want to sell, you honestly wanted to sell. But then later the price changes, the price goes up, and now you see you can make more money if you sell it for a higher price, and now you want to back out because the price went up. Over here, according to Rav, if you just gave your word and now the price went up, you're allowed to back out from it. That's how Rashi explains this, which means actually, according to Rashi, that even this that Rav says you can get, that once you gave your word you can back out. That's only if you have a reason to. If the price went up, and so you say to yourself, why should I lose money if the market value now is different? But if a person stam wants to back out from his word after he gave his word and the price didn't change, even according to Rav, you shouldn't back out. Now the Gemara asks from another brayse, and this we had already quoted before in Daf Memches. Meisvei, Rab Shimon says, Alpha Pisha Amru, even though it was said regarding the kinyan of metaltalin. Again, this is the whole point that we were learning before in the sugya, that the only way to acquire metaltalin is to do an act of a kinyan, let's say Mashiach, in the object. Paying money does not create the kinyan. So therefore it was said like this, Talis kaina din zahav, that if you do the act of the kinyan in the garment that you're acquiring, so then the kinyan takes effect and you have to pay for it, the din zahav. But on the other hand, ve'ein din zahav kaina talis, if you pay the dinner, the money, the kinyan does not take effect for this garment. So that's the halacha. In a case where you just paid money, there is no kinyan in effect. So now mikol makaim, so yes, kach halacha, this is taka the halacha. Aval amru, however, it was said that if you paid already, so then misha para manche dera mabul, manche dera floge, who asad li para mi mishenim emid b'diburai. That Eibusha that punished the dera mabul and the dera floge will punish the one that does not stick to his word after money was paid. That's the misha para in such a case. Now Rashi says that the question of the Gemara on Rav's opinion here is from the continuation of the Braisa. The Gemara doesn't quote it here because it already quoted it on the previous daf. What does it say in the continuation of the Braisa? That in the case where a person backs out of his word, even if he wasn't paid yet, then ein ruach chachamim noiche hemimenu. Even if he doesn't get a mishapara, but the chachamim are not happy with a person that backs out from his word. Because like Rabbi Yehuda says before, it's not mechusari amani. He's not, the person should be faithful to his word. As the pasuk says, that Sheretz Yisrael yavla yasa avla dabru chazav. So the question on Rav is, you have a clear brayse here that says that ein ruach chachamim noiche hemimenu, of a person that backs out of his word. So the Gemara answers, we'll have to say according to Rav, Tanoihi, that it's a machlekes Tanoim. Because there's a Mishnah where you see like what Rav said. Because the Mishnah says like this. There was a story with Rabbi Yechanan ben Masya. Sha'amal lebnoi, he told his son, say uschar lanu paylim. Go and hire for us workers to work in our property. Halach, he went and he hired the workers, and he pasak lehem bezainis, and he also set with them a certain amount of what he's going to feed them when they work. When he came back to his father and he told his father what he told the workers that he's going to feed them, so his father said, "Oh maloi," he says to his son, "B'ni my son, afilat ha'islam kesudas shloime b'shaitai lo yatzasi dechav." Even if you're going to promise them that you're going to feed them, and you're going to feed them a meal like Shlomo Melech had in his times, it's not enough to feed them. Shehem b'nei Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov, because you're hiring Yiddish workers, b'nei Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov, no meal will be sufficient for them. So basically, he was telling him, "Don't part of when you hire them, we'll pay them. But I didn't tell you that you should tell them that you're going to feed them as well. They'll have to feed themselves." So therefore, he says to his son, "Ela at shaloi yaschilu b'melacha." Before they begin their work, Tseva Mar Lahem, go and let them know, Almanas she'en lecha malaya lapasa kitnes bavad. Make it clear to them that I'm not going to give you mezainis. If you're going to just say I'm giving you mezainis and you're not going to specify exactly what mezainis it is, then you're going to have to give them more than sudas shleima b'shaitai. So just tell them very clearly, if you want me to feed you, no problem. I'm going to give you pas for kitnis. Just some bread and some kitnis, some beans. Huh? Beans. Yeah. Okay, that's the story that it says there in the Mishnah. Now, what happened over here? He's telling his son to backtrack on the word that he gave these workers that he's going to feed them. And now he's telling him, go and tell them you're not going to stomp feed them. You're going to give them specifically bread and beans. If you're going to say that when you gave your word, so then it's not faithful to back out, how did he tell his son, go tell the workers that I'm retracting from the deal that I made with you, that I'm going to feed you? You're not allowed to. So from this Mishnah, you see, like Rav's opinion, even after you gave your word, you're allowed to back out. So the Gemara answers, no, you can't prove from there like Rav's opinion. Why not? Shani Hassam, that case is different. The Pailam Gufayu, the workers themselves, they're not relying on what the sons over here went and told these workers when they hired them. My time, why aren't they relying on them? Because they know that the one that's really the hiring them is the father, and the son is just here as a shliach to come and hire him. So they're really just relying on what the father says. So therefore, the fact that the son now is coming and retracting from what he told them, that I'm going to give you mezainis, and now they're saying just pass for kitnis, that's not a problem to back out, because this is not a case where the person you told this to was even relying in the first place on it.
But they relied for the schar.
For the
schar, they didn't rely on the son.
What do you mean for the schar? For the payment? Well, if theoretically you can back out from that also, according to what the Gemara says here. But it wasn't the case. It wasn't necessary to back out. But according to what the Gemara says there, for that you can back out as well.
Also, they didn't start working yet. Nothing happened.
Okay, but still, but the whole point of here is, though, if we're saying that the word, Rabbi Yochanan says, once you give your word, even before you start working, the word itself is significant, you're not allowed to back out. But now the Gemara asks, if we're saying that they're not even relying on the son, they're relying on the father, so if they did begin their work already, you should also be able to back out. Why is he telling them, go rush and tell them before they start their work that you're changing the commitment that you're making for them? Why before they started their work? They anyways are not relying on what the son says. So the Gemara says, no, there is a difference. Because once these workers began their work, at that point already, they actually are relying on the commitment and the deal that was made with them. Why not? Because they say to themselves, if at this point he didn't come back and retract from what he told us, probably he allowed us to start working, probably the father got the information of what the deal is, and he's allowing us to start working, so then they are relying on it. So at that point, you can't back out anymore. Okay, so it comes out of here that we really do not have a source for Rav's opinion. We brought a clear brisa against Rav, and there's no source in this Mishnah for Rav. But now the Gemara asks Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, once you give your word, even without any payment, you shouldn't back out. But in Rabbi Yochanan hachi, did Rabbi Yochanan say this? So he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, a person gives his word to his friend that I'm going to give you a gift. He's allowed to retract from this. So now the term here that's used is yachol. He can retract from this. So the Gemara first clarifies, what did Rabbi Yochanan say? Yachol. He's coming to say that he could retract from this. Pshita, obviously, what you're just giving a word, make it a din, there's no kinyan here, there's no sale, there's nothing, of course you can retract from this. Pshita. So Ella, the Gemara says, what Rabbi Yochanan said was, mutter lachsabay. Of course you can retract, but the point is you're allowed to. Even though you gave your word, this is not mechusari amana, it's not unfaithful to go and back out. So we see over here clearly Rabbi Yochanan said you're allowed to back out from a word that you gave. Amar Rav Papa, so Rav Papa answers, Moide Rav Papa, Rabbi Yochanan that is, Moide Rabbi Yochanan admits in this case, and that is, B'matonu mu'etes, the samcha datayu. When it comes to a matonu mu'etes, so then in such a case, you promise someone that you're going to give him a matana, something that's small. In such a case, the person that heard this from you and you gave him your word for this, he's relying that you're going to give him this matana, and then you can't back out. But if you're promising someone that you're going to give him a large gift, that's something that the person is doubtful that you're going to follow through. It's just words, and it's a very large gift. He doesn't rely on it. So if you end up backing out from it, there's no issue of not being faithful because he didn't rely on it in the first place. The Gemara brings a source for this. It's logical to make this distinction according to Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. Why? Because there's another statement that Rabbi Yochanan said. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Yisrael she'amal ben Levi. A Yisrael comes to a Levi and tells him like this: Kor meiser yesh lecha biyadi. I have a measurement of a kor of meiser in my hands that I'm going to give you. So here again, he's giving his word that he's going to give this meiser to the Levi. He didn't give it yet though. So now Ben Levi, this Levi, Rashoy Lasaisai Trumas Meiser Mokamacher. This Levi that has produce of Meiser in his possession. Now the halacha regarding Meiser that a Levi has is 1/10 of it he has to give to the Kohen. So if he wants, he can designate 1/10 for this Trumas Meiser from this produce of the Meiser that Yisrael promised he's gonna give him.
He's relying on it.
He's relying on it, yeah, and he can designate the Meiser from there. So now the Gemara says, what's Rabbi Yechanan saying here? If you're going to say that loy motzila had the bay, that the Yisrael that promised he's going to give this to him is not supposed to retract from this, again, because once you give your word, it's not faithful to back out, so you can rely on this. So therefore, he's not allowed to. Therefore, the Levi could give the Trumas Meiser for this Meiser that the Yisrael promised he's going to give him, because he can rely on it, and we know that he's not going to back out. But if you're going to say that the Yisrael, after he promised this, could back out, why could the Levi now rely on that Meiser that he's getting to designate Trumas Meiser from it? He may back out, and then it comes out that the Trumas Meiser that you designated and that Meiser that the Yisrael is giving you is not yours. He's not going to give it to you. And now Rashi points out that this case of the Yisrael that promises to give Meiser to the Levi is considered to be a matone mu'etes. It's a small matone. Why is it a small matone? Because what does the Yisrael have in this Meiser? The Yisrael doesn't own this Meiser. He anyways has to give it away. The only thing that he has for this Meiser is the Toivas Hana. He can choose to which Levi to give it to. So therefore for him it's very little value. So in a case like this, where he gives his word for such a kind of matana, which is defined as a matana muetes, he can't back out anymore. He's not supposed to back out anymore. So therefore, the Levi could rely on this. So this is a proof that, to the point that we said before, that Rabbi Yechanan agrees by a matana muetes, you're not supposed to back out. But the Gemara says, no, not necessarily is this a proof from what Rabbi Yechanan said here. Why not? Because I can tell you that in that case, when the Yisrael promised the Levi to give him the Meiser, what's the case? The Levi already took this Meiser from the Yisrael. And then he just gave it back to him to hold on to him for a pekadon. But he already took it from him. So therefore it's already his Meiser. And that's the case. Once he got it from him already, now it's just a pekadon. So obviously, the Yisrael has to give it to the Levi. Taisus actually says that if that's the case, then there's really no chiddush in what Rabbi Yechanan is saying here. That he can separate the Trumas Meiser relying on that. It's his already. It's just a pekadon by the Yisrael. Okay, but the Gemara asks another question. But if that's what Rabbi Yechanan was talking about, aim is safer. So then what did he say afterwards? Bava said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan that what happens? Nasnai leben Levi acher. After this, Yisrael promises one Levi, I'm going to give you the Meiser. And then he goes and gives it to a different Levi. So then what happens? This Levi that he promised to give it to, you could have complaints to him, but in a Bezdin, there's no way that you could actually be mitzi this Meiser from him, even if it's true that you're supposed to keep your word and you're not supposed to back out. But al pi halacha, though, there's nothing binding here. There's no actual kinny. You gave it to someone else, so you can complain to him. Now, if you're going to say that the case over here is that you already took this Meiser from the Yisrael and you just gave it back to him as a pekadon, why are you saying that now, if he goes and gives this to a different Levi, all you have is complaints? Given the mashche, once you already took it into your possession, it's your money, it belongs to you, and he's just holding it on to you as a pekadon. Rabbi Yechanan was talking about a case where the Levi did not take the Meiser yet, and nevertheless we say, because it's a matana mu'etes, it's a case where the Yisrael that promised to give it to this Levi is not supposed to back out. So the Levi could rely on that he's going to get it, and he can designate it as Trumas Meiser. Shema Mino, this is a proof to this pshat in Rabbi Yechanan's opinion. So here now the Gemara brings another story that happened in connection to the halacha we learned before about the down payment. Hahu Gavra, the Yav Zuzia Shumshimi. There was a person that gave money for buying Shumshimi, sesame seeds. Now, L'Seifa Yaka Shumshimi. Then the price of the sesame seeds went up. So now the seller wants to have charata from the sale, so he can sell it for the higher price. Less than shum shemi. The seller retracted, and he comes to the buyer and says, "Sorry, we don't have the sesame seeds. I don't have it. Shkol zuzach, take back your money and leave us alone. We're not giving you the sesame seeds." Loi shakol zuzeh. Okay, so 1 second. Let me just correct the point I said before. I don't think this is a case of a down payment. We're talking about he paid for the sesame seeds already, but now the seller paid for the whole value, and the seller decides, forget about it. The price went up. I don't want the sale anymore. And he says to him, take your money. So the buyer did not take his money back. What happened in the end? Ignav, the money that was there in the possession of the seller, got stolen. Now, also, they came to ask Rava about this case. What's the halacha? So Rava says to the buyer, Kivin the amrelach shkoil zuzach, because he told you take your money back, v'loy shaklis, and you didn't take it. So now, needless to say, that the seller, he's not a shomer sachar for the money that you kept in his possession. He's not a shomer either. You weren't supposed to keep your money in his possession. He clearly told you, come and take your money. I'm taking no responsibility for it. So if it got stolen, it's not his responsibility. That's what Rava Paskin. Now on this, Amru le Rabbanon le Rava. So the Rabbanon that were there, they asked Rava about this psak din. What happened over here? This is after he paid already for all the sesame seeds. We said before that even if the kinyan by metaltalin does not take effect when you pay, but there's still a mishapara. The Mishnah says that you get a curse for not following through with the sale. Vaha boyle kibule ale mishapara. The seller has to accept upon himself a mishapara if he's going to back out from the sale. So the question that they're asking him is, maybe if the seller would know that he has to accept the mishapara, he's not interested in backing out for the sale, and then maybe he'll say, okay, fine, I accept the payment, and the shum shuman is yours, I'll give you the sesame seeds. So why are we patting him from paying over here so quickly? Maybe the money is already belongs to the seller, and now he should give the sesame seeds, because maybe he wouldn't accept this mishapara. Amalahu, so Rava answered, Hachanami. Taki, you're right. If in a case where he doesn't want to accept the mishapara and therefore the sale would be in effect, so then the money already belongs to the seller and he has to give the sesame seeds for this. That's the version of the story, the way this was recorded and repeated. So now Rav Papi said about the story, Amali Ravina told me, Lididi Amali Ahumi Rabbanan. There was one of the Rabbanan that told me, Rav Tavis Shmei, his name was Rav Tavis. V'amri la others said Rav Shmuel Bazutra Shmei, that his name was Rav Shmuel Bazutra. This is an individual, this one of the Rabbanan here, whether Rav Tavis or Rav Shmuel Bazutra, if you give him anything that exists in the entire world, he's not going to change from the truth. And he told us that this story actually happened with me. I was the seller. And the story happened differently than we just recorded it. And what was the story that actually happened? There was this day, which was Apanya, the Maila Shabbat, was late Friday afternoon. And I'm sitting in my house. A person comes and knocks on the door, and Amalia tells me, do you have any sesame seeds to sell? And I answered him, no, I don't have any sesame seeds. So the person says, if so, Amali tells me, take the money that I have with me. I want to give it to you as a pekadon to keep for me until after Shabbos. Why? It's going to be dark. It's going to be Shabbos. I don't want to keep the money with me. So Amrilei, I told him, listen, the house is in front of you, and that's it. In other words, this is the exact expression that he said to him. The house is there for you. So this person with the money went and put that money in my house. Then what happens? V'ignev, over Shabbos, the money got stolen. And that's what the story is that happens. There was no sale here of Shum Shimon. He didn't have any sesame seeds. It's just that this person asked him a favor to keep the money, and he said, my house is here. And he went and put the money in the house. Also, so now they came to Rav and asked him about what happened with the money that it got stolen. Is it his responsibility of this person in the house to pay back? So here Rav answered, Kol ha beisa kamach. Anytime you use such a kind of expression, you tell someone that wants to give you a pekadon, and you just say to him, "Here, my house is for you." Needless to say that he's not accepting upon himself to be a shema on the level of a shema sachar. This kind of expression, he's not accepting upon himself to guard it altogether. That was the story that happened. Amri lei, so now they said to him and said, this is the version of the story that happened, but didn't we hear about this story that Amru le Rabbanon le Rava, that after the Psak Din, the Rabbanon commented to Rava and said, Ibayele le Kabula le Misha Para, that the seller should be getting a Misha Para. So the way the version of the story that you just repeated that happened, there was no sale here. So there's no Misha Para here. So what's this story with that detail? Did that detail happen or not? And he answered me, Loi hayu dvarim ma'olam. That detail of the story never happened. Okay, now we go back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, Rab Shimon oime kol shakesef b'yadai yada al yoyne v'cholor. Rab Shimon says, in a case where there was no proper sale because the buyer did not do a proper ma'aseh kinyan in the object that he bought, but he paid for it already. In such a case, the Mishnah said that there's a misha para. But then the Mishnah then said that because there was no proper kinyan yet, so the Tanakama holds the buyer or the seller could back out of this kinyan. On that, Reb Shimon says, no, the one that has the money in his hands, which is the seller, he's the one that got paid over here, he's the one that could have charata from this kinyan, but the buyer cannot have charata from this kinyan. Okay, the Gemara already explained the opinion of Reb Shimon before, that Reb Shimon's opinion is based on the fact that really, minatayre, the kinyan of kesef, does work even for metaltalin. And Reb Shimon holds that it's just a takonomy de Rabbanan, like Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, that says that it doesn't work for metaltalin. What's the reason why that Rabbi Yochanan said that there's no kinyan of kesef for metaltalin? Because if you're going to say there is, so after you pay, but you kept your merchandise still in the house or in the storehouse of the seller, what happens if a fire breaks out? The Moich is going to say to himself, why should I exert and why should I invest any energy to save from the fire? It's anyways not mine. It belongs to the buyer. He paid for it already. The kinyan took effect. It's his loss. Okay, so therefore we say, no, the buyer himself has the ability to retract from the sale. So if he can retract from the sale and then he can gain from this, it's still his. And the price could go up, he can sell it. So therefore now, if a fire breaks out, he's going to save it. He's going to, because it's still his. So therefore, according to Rab Shimon, it's enough, it's just one point that the Moicher could have charata. But there's no reason to say Chachamim were not mesakin that the Lekeach could have charata, because really minatayra, the kinyan of kesef, does take effect. That was the way the Gemara explained before the opinion of Rab Shimon. Here the Gemara brings a brayso that what Rab Shimon said about this. So Tanya in a brayso we learned, Rab Shimon said, Hey Masai, when could the seller back out? When the moicher, the seller, has both the money that he was paid and the peiris, the merchandise, the fruits that he was selling, is still in his possession. So then he can back out from the sale. If the money is in the hands of the moicher and the peiris are already in the hands of the lekeach, so in such a case you can't have charata. And here the reason that's given is because the money is in his hands. Seemingly it means it's in his hands, in the lekeach's hands. So the Gemara asks right away, the reason that's being given here does not make sense. Biyodai, the money is in the hands of the lekeach. Biyad moicheru, it's already in the hands of the moicher. It started off saying that the case over here is that he already paid the money to the moicher. So what does it mean? Ella, so he answers the reason why you can't retract in this case is the value for the money, meaning the merchandise, the fruits were already given to the buyer. That's why you can't back out. When could you back out? If you paid, but there was no meshicha. You didn't do the act of the kinyan to take it into the lekeach's possession. But once the lekeach took the fruits, so then there's no backing out anymore. So now the Gemara asks on this pshat. Pshita, obviously, you did the whole kinyan already. The lekeach got his fruits. Of course, you can't back out. So the Gemara explains, no, he didn't yet take the money, the fruits that is. The lekeach did not yet take the fruits in his possession. Amar Rav explains, what are we talking about over here? The second floor of this house is what was rented out to the moicher. So the lekeach himself, the buyer, lives on the bottom floor of the house. The top floor in the house is rented out to the seller, and that's where he has his fruits that he sells to his landlord that lives downstairs. So in such a case, even if the lekeach did not take his fruits yet, as soon as he pays, there's no backing out anymore. And the Gemara explains why not. Because why did Chachamim institute that the kinyan does not take effect until the lekeach takes the fruit in his possession? Even though Minat Torah there is a kinyan of kesef, according to Rab Shimon, as I explained before. The reason is, Gzeire Shema Yomer Eloi Nisrfu Chitecha B'Aliyah. The seller will come and say, sorry, there was a fire and your wheat got burnt. And as I explained before, the buyer will not will lose. The seller will not go out of his way to save it from the fire. But Hacha, in our case, Chachamim did not apply their takana. Why not? Because B'Rishusa de Lekeach Nino. This is in the same house as the buyer himself. The buyer lives on the bottom floor. And the fruits is upstairs in the renter, which is the meicher's floor. That's where the fruits are. So if not enough la deleka, if there's going to be a einus there and a fire breaks out, the lekeich lives here. The lekeich himself will rush and save it from him. We don't have to have a special takana to motivate the meicher to go and sell these fruits that are still in his storehouse. It's not somewhere far away from the lekeich in his storehouse. It's right here in the second floor of the lekeich's own house. So in this case, he's going to save it from the fire. Chachamim did not apply their takana in this case. Therefore, in this case, you can't have charata from the sale. So the Gemara finishes off with the story. Ahu Gavre, there was a story with an individual, the Yav Zuzi Achamre. He already paid money for the wine that he was buying. The Saif Shama, in the end, the buyer heard the Kabbalah Mitzvah de Befarzik Rufila, that an individual of the name of Farzik, which is a minister, Rufila, he's a second to the king, a very, very prominent person, that he decided that he wants to buy this wine. So now this buyer knew that this wine is going to be confiscated from him because this minister wants to get this wine. So Amalei, so he tells the seller, Havli Zuzi, forget about it. I wanted to retract from the sale. Give me back my money. I don't need the wine. So they came to Rav Chisda to ask him if he can back out over here from the sale. Amalei, so Rav Chisda answered, yes, just like Chachamim instituted regarding the seller, that only when there's Meshiche, he can't back out. When the Lekeich actually took it, then he can't back out. But until then, the Meiche can back out. Similar, it was also instituted regarding the buyer that unless he did Meshiche, he can back out already. Therefore, over here, there was no Meshiche, he just paid, but then he found out that this is going to be confiscated by someone else. He's allowed to back out. And I think over here it says that there's no mishapara for this because he's not back. He's backing out because he knows he's going to lose it. He's not going to have anything from it. So in this case, there's no mishapara. So Mishnah, here this Mishnah begins to discuss the halachas of Eino, which is a sale where the price that was charged was not the market value for the object that was bought, whether it was overpaid or underpaid. So over here, the Mishnah says as follows. So Eino, the halacha of Eino that we're talking about over here is where the halacha is going to be that since the price was not right, so the sale will be in effect, but you have the one that was if the buyer overpaid, he has a choice. He can either back out from the sale, that's what the Tana of this Mishnah holds, he can back out from the sale in this case, or he can ask the seller, give me back that extra fee that I paid, the extra money that I paid for it. So what is that amount of the Eino? Ha'Eino is arba kesef mi esrim va'arba kesef l'sela. So it's four ma'is, that is, 4 ma'is out of 24 ma, which make up a sela. So what does this mean? If the amount that the buyer was overcharged was 4 out of 24, that's the amount that's considered to be that he was a shtus lemekach, right? He was overcharged by 1/6 of the value of this product that he bought. In such a case, the halacha is that he's either allowed to request to back out from the wholesale, or he can request back the money. That's the way Rashi learns over here, the pshat of the Tana of the Mishnah. Okay, now just to clarify, what happens if he was overcharged more than 1/6, more than this amount? So then the whole sale is totally bottled. That's what's called a mekach tos. What happens if the mistake or he was overcharged, that is, less than the 1/6? So then in such a case, we say that the sale remains in effect and nobody can back out. And if the buyer took it for this price and he was charged more than market value, but less than 1/6, so then we say that he was meichel. If he accepted it, he was meichel, or some say you don't even have to use the concept of mechila. It's just that is the price of this thing, and it's just part of the price. Okay, but here, the case of the shtos is specifically a case where the sale is in effect, but you can request to back out, or you can request your money back for that extra amount that you were charged. Sixth, that's if you would charge a sixth more than the value of what the product is. Now, until when does the buyer have the option to back out from the sale or to ask back for his money that he was overcharged? He can't come back a week later or even a day later. He has only a certain amount of time that he can come back. After a certain amount of time that the buyer held this product in his possession, we say that the buyer already accepted it. He was meichel and he can't back out anymore. So until when is that? Ad kedei sheyara l'tagar l'kreivei. We give him the amount of time that it would take that he can show this product to a relative of his or to another merchant that can give him an idea whether he was overcharged or not. But after that amount of time, he can't back out anymore because then he already accepted he was meichel. Now, Rab Tarfon and Lud paskin differently regarding the actual amount of the what he was overcharged. So Rab Tarfon paskin ha'oino shmoine kesef me esen v'arba kesef. The amount is 8 out of 24, which is the sela, which the 24 is what makes up a sela. Shlish lemekach. That means that only when you were charged. You overcharge a third of the price of what the actual product is. That's when you say that you can back out from the sale or you can ask back from that money. So he said that you can overcharge. The seller can overcharge much more, all the way up to a third of the value of the sale. The Tagarim, the merchants of Lud, were very happy about this because they knew how to evaluate exactly the price of the market value, and they were able to overcharge more. But then, though, he was stringent on another thing. Amalehem, he told the Tagarim of Lud, Kol ayoim mutal achsei. The buyer, so the policy of returns, he can come, or to back out, that is, when he was overcharged, he has all day for this. Not just like we said before, he just has a small window of that little time that it takes him to show it to another merchant or a relative of his. No, he has the entire day to back out. So if so, the Omruloi, so they said to Rab Tarfon, Yaniach le Rab Tarfon b'mekaimenu, that leave Rab Tarfon from our place, and let's not follow Rab Tarfon's halacha in our place. They went back to the opinion of the Chachamim. They would rather follow the Chachamim that they could only overcharge up to the amount of a shtos, but the option of the person to back out is much less, just the amount of time that he has to show it to someone else. Okay, so here the Gemara brings a machlokes how to understand this amount of shtos that the Mishnah said. So Itmer, we learned the following machlokes. Rav said, shtos mekach shaninu. The shtos that the Mishnah spoke about was the shtos, a sixth of the actual value of the product that's being sold. That's the case where we said that you can back out from it, or you could demand back that money that you overcharged. But if it was more than that amount, as I mentioned before, what's the halacha if it was more than a shtos? It's a mekach tos. Or if it was less than that amount, then it's mechila. So the shtus is the shtus of the mekach. Shmuel says shtus mois nami shanino. Not only if it's a shtus of the actual product itself, but there could be another way how to evaluate this sixth, even if you evaluate the sixth according to the total price that was paid. And the Gemara spells out what that means. Now, shavi shita b'chamsha, if the product that you're selling, the market value of it is 6. So what's a sixth of this product that is worth a 6? What's a sixth of it? 1. Right? So now if you sell it b'chamsha, if you sell it, so you underpaid, you sold for 5. So who's the one that over here got less of what he deserved? The seller. Or shavi shita b'shiva, if it was supposed to be sold for 6 and instead he sold it for 7, so now the buyer overpaid. In such a case, kula amole pligi, there's no argument over here between Rav and Shmuel. The bossa mekach hasdinan, you look at the actual price of the product, and therefore there's a sixth over here that was either underpaid or overpaid. Vaino havya. This is the halacha of vaino that he could back out if he wants, according to our Mishnah, or you could demand back that pay, or that was not fair. Now, where's the machlekes of Rav and Shmuel? Ki pligi, their argument is shav chamsha, when the product itself is actually worth only 5. And what was it sold for? It was sold b'shita. It was sold now instead for 6. So really, he was overcharged a 5th. Because if the product is only worth 5 and you sell for an extra zuz, so then you're being overcharged a 5th. Or Vishavi Shiva, the product was worth 7 and Bishita. Instead, you paid one less of that. So really, if you look at the product itself, that means that you paid less, a seventh of this. So now Shmuel, here's the Chiddush where Shmuel added and said that in this case as well, the Oma Basa Moi says Linon, that you look at, when you evaluate the Aina, a sixth, you also look at the total price that was paid of the money, and therefore we say that this is also considered to be Aina of a sixth. Meaning you don't only look at the product, you look at the actual price that was paid. The actual price that was paid was a sixth. And therefore, as far as the sixth is concerned, the actual price that was paid was 6. So as far as the actual price that was paid was 6, a sixth of that is one zuz, which is what he overpaid or underpaid. So therefore, idi v'idi ayna have. So in both cases, whether the sixth is evaluating the price of the product itself, or the sixth is evaluating the full price that you actually ended up paying, either way, this is the ayna of the sixth that the Mishnah meant. That's now the Gemara explains. L'Rav the Oma Bosa Mekka Chazlinon. Rav that says that you follow the value of just the product itself. So Shavi Chamshe B'Shita. If the product itself is only worth 5 and you sold it for 6, so Bittul Mekka Chavya. So this is the whole sale is totally bottled. This is not a case where you say that there's a no and this is a sixth and you can demand back the money. This is the whole mekach is bottled because this is more than a sixth. If you look at the product itself, you were the mistake over here is you were overcharged a fifth. Now shavi shiva b'shita. On the other hand, if the product itself is worth 7 and you pay just 6, mechila havya. So in this case, you were overcharged. Or you underpaid over here. You underpaid over here less than a sixth. So in this case, if the seller accepted this payment, he was meichel because you underpaid him less than a sixth. But Shmuel says, Ki amrinon mechila ubitl mekach. When do I say that either because it's less than a sixth, so there's a mechila over here, and you don't retract from the sale at all, or on the other hand, if you were overcharged more than a sixth, that the whole sale is bottled, if there's no way to evaluate over here that the mistake was the value of a shtus on any side, meaning not as far as the value of the product itself is concerned, and not when you look at the actual payment of the money that happened. But if there is a value of a shtus, of a sixth that was overpaid or underpaid, whether you look at it as far as the product itself is concerned, or you look at it as far as the actual final payment that was made is concerned, in such a case, that's considered to be a no. That's the machlekes of Rav and the Shmuel over here. Okay, we'll have to leave this for tomorrow to see the question from our Mishnah on this.